What's going on, guys? Greek Freak here, and in this video we're going to be talking about Kevin Love and trade rumors to the San Antonio Spurs. Now, of course, we've been hearing a lot about Kevin Love as far as trade rumors and many things of this, but of course this one to me very much interested me as far as what it would be in many situations. But as far as that, I think the fact that it really does make sense as far as for the Cleveland Cavaliers trying to trade away Kevin Love. I just really don't see a reason why they're really wanting to maintain a player with such a high contract for so long in this consideration of what's happening. But as far as that situation, we of course are going to look down at his stats, going with now 18.7 points per game, 12.6 rebounds per game, 3.2 assists per game, 1 steal per game, shooting around 34% from the three-point line. So you're talking about a big that, of course, can spread the floor, one of the better rebounders in the league, and, of course, somebody with playoff experience, things such as that. And, of course, the big downfall to it, of course, is going to be that maximum contract. But we know the fact that there are multiple teams interested in trying to acquire somebody like Kevin Love. And it's very strange to really see the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers have maintained with him for as long as we have. Now, of course, with the San Antonio Spurs, I was talking about DeRozan last time, but this year is going to be going with a Lamarcus Aldridge. Now, of course, with this, we're talking about a player that's getting up there with the age, and somebody who, of course, also does have a pretty big contract, but not as big as Kevin Love's, but 2 years remaining on that deal. So, of course, once again, we're going with the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers can once again go on with having a player that it gets rid of that contract a little bit sooner. With Kevin Love, of course, having 4 more years left, you're going to be dropping 2 years of that maximum salary right off of the books, being able to work with things within those few more years, which makes a lot more sense when it comes down to it. It allows you to be able to pick between players and not be able to have to sit there and decide whether you don't want to sign a nice young player that you do end up having, and being able to establish going into the future and actually seeing what they can do, perform, and things such as that, and be able to use them legitimately in trade rumors, anything like that. So whenever we see something with a move such as this, we're seeing the fact that most likely the most sense for the Cleveland Cavaliers to go is with that. Now, my only reason why I could understand why they really do want to maintain Kevin Love at this situation is the fact that they do have a very young team, and they definitely want to be able to have as far as a player that has that veteran type of experience onto the court for the younger players, and somebody who, of course, handles himself professionally in that way. So if that is the case, somebody like Lamarcus Aldridge could also be that for this a little bit slightly more discounted rate, and of course somebody that you don't have to maintain for all the years that Kevin Love has to be maintained to, and allows Kevin Love, of course, for the San Antonio Spurs to establish a younger player who also does very similar things with Lamarcus Aldridge. Of course, I would have to say Lamarcus Aldridge is better at rim protecting, and with Kevin Love, you have somebody who's a slightly better three-point shooter and somebody who's a better rebounder. So in that case, I think the fact that you would definitely want to go with something like this, there's obviously they'd be willing to handle this max contract. Is for right now, it wouldn't really change anything for the first 2 years. It would just tie up more money in the last 2. And of course, whenever you're talking about something like this, you're talking about somebody that at the end of the contract they're around 35 years old, where Lamarcus Aldridge at this point would end up being around 36 years old. So whenever we see something like this, it makes plenty of sense that a team in the Spurs would be interested in this. Now, of course, when we go into that, looking onto the other side of what Cleveland would receive, would be somebody who's averaging around 18.5 points per game, 6.5 rebounds per game, 2.7 assists per game, 1.9 blocks per game, shooting around 33% from the three-point line, which is ahead of what he usually shoots for his career average from the three-point line. So for right now, you could even expect that to go down a little bit. So the reason why we definitely consider that, and whenever we looked at Kevin Love's numbers, he was slightly below what his average is. So we could see maybe even a flipping as far as that to go. Now, of course, like I mentioned, 2 years left on the contract, which is one of the reasons why this could be attractive for somebody like Cleveland. Like I mentioned before, I think the fact that that's really the main mindset when we go into these teams right now. So right now we do have 3 teams that we know are interested in Kevin Love, and that being the Spurs, Rockets, and the Portland Trail Blazers as far as teams that would be interested. Now, of course, each one has, to me, a very variable difference on what they would be wanting to offer in this situation. With Lamarcus Aldridge, you're talking about a veteran player who has a short contract, but really does work in with it very well. With the Rockets, you have somebody like Clint Capella, so you're getting a very young player, somebody that if you want them, you're going off more potential based. And of course, you're still going to have to maintain a salary, but you're flipping it for a very much younger player that you can develop with your younger players as well. And if you're going with somebody like the Portland Trail Blazers, you're talking about a player who has a very short-term contract in Hassan Whiteside. So you're talking about something where you're doing it just to remove the cap space from your books. So whenever we're definitely seeing something like this, now of course the reason why maybe something like removing the cap space from your books immediately isn't really a big deal for them would be the fact that, of course, they're a very young team and it's Cleveland. It's not very attractive market. You're not really looking to sign a max player coming onto the offseason, but the reason why you maybe would want this space 4 years down the road would be the reason that you want to maintain one of your younger players that performs very well, and you don't want them just being able to either just leave because of that, or you end up in a situation like Charlotte ended up with Nicholas Batum, where you can't actually trade away the player, and then you can't sign your player, as in Kemba Walker, who walked away for free essentially to the Celtics. Now guys, I guess this question for you guys today will be, will the Cleveland Cavaliers trade Kevin Love this season? Do you think the fact that this is a possibility? I think the fact that it's going to happen eventually, but they need to make a move with it quickly before it becomes unattractive, like the John Wall situation I mentioned before. Now guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure that you guys leave a like and subscribe to Call of the Greek Army today. And as always, this is Sparta.